beautiful ladies and handsome men. I am not sure what's true or false in this story. I take gossip, tea, rumor, and scandal from yesteryear, from online, from word of mouth, from books, and I ball it up and I tell you guys a story. Now, let's get to it.
Wait. Whoa, yes, wait a minute, Mr. Postman. Wait, Mr. Postman.
Please, Mr. Postman, look at
Oh, y'all, wait. Ain't nobody come here to hear that. Yes, ma'am, they are coming to hear this song. Everybody wants to hear the song that hit #1. No, ma'am, they came here to hear this. Hear what I say, girls, keep away, don't mess with Bill. No, they don't want to hear your doggone song. Thank you very much. Everybody is here to see me, like I said, because I'm the one with the #1 song. And you know what? You've been getting on my nerves anyway, Wanda. Come on, it's time to put your doggone hands up. Well, come on then. Don't let this short stature fool you, baby. I rock like that. Girl, please. Now, y'all, that was just a dramatization. I'm not sure if anybody got into any fist fights, but the folks said it was a little bit of division in the Marvelettes. This is Ashley with Ashley Says So, and I am back with another Old Hollywood Scandals video, and I've already introduced the subject, so honey, let's get to it. The original Marvelettes that pretty much everybody knows was made up of Gladys Horton, Juanita Coward, Katherine Anderson, Georgiana Tillman, and Wanda Young. But contrary to the backstory that all of them grew up right down the street from each other, they did not. It was only actually about 3 who actually lived near each other. And that was Katherine Anderson, Juanita Coward, and Georgiana Tillman. So it was those 3 who were friends very early on, and also those 3 who went to Inkster High School together. When they got to Inkster High School, most if not all of them were a part of the Glee Club, and then soon they all moved up to the Chorus Club. It was while these 3 were a part of the Chorus Club that a new girl came to town, and this new girl's name was Gladys Horton. Now, maybe some of the other girls had drive and kind of wanted to sing, but that doggone Gladys Horton, that little girl had some real drive. Just as soon as she came to the school and she also became a part of the chorus, she scoped out the 3 other girls that I've mentioned and tried to talk them into starting a music group with her. And it was while Katherine, Juanita, and Georgiana were mulling over the idea of whether to join Gladys in this group that their high school announced a talent show. And they said whoever won first prize in this talent show would get to meet a local record executive. And as soon as Gladys Horton heard this, baby, that little thinking about joining the group was over with. Gladys was pretty much like, yes, y'all are in the group, we are a group, because we got to do this thing. And Gladys could just imagine winning that first prize. You know, she could just taste it. In fact, she could taste it so bad and wanted to be so prepared to win the first prize that Gladys started to scout talent that wasn't even in school with them. There was this girl named Georgia Dobbins who had graduated from Inkster High School the year before, and from what Gladys heard, this girl Georgia Dobbins could really sing. In fact, Georgia Dobbins had actually started singing background to several groups, so she had real-world experience that Gladys wanted a piece of. And so they get to Georgia Dobbins' house, and Gladys starts asking straight out, hey, please, Georgia, can you please join our group? Like, can you please help us? But baby, Georgia ain't had no time for them. She was grown, honey. Mind you, she probably really was only around 17, 18 years old. But again, she had graduated. So in her mind, she was grown. You know what I'm saying? These were little children trying to come up here and ask her to sing with them. She had already put away childish things. But it was Georgia's mother who pulled her to the side and was basically like, you know, Georgia, I know you graduated and you grown and all that kind of stuff, but child, please help them little girls. Look at them. They sitting over there practicing. They little knobby knees rubbing together. Baby, they need your help. And so Georgia finally gives in. You know, she's like, oh, you know, okay, I'll help them. I'll help them at least win the talent show. And they start rehearsing. Everybody starts finding their vocal key in singing. She teaches them how to rock together and do their little dance moves without bumping into each other. And as things slowly came together for the girls, they even came up with a group name. And that group name was the Can't Sing Yet, which actually was the Can't Sing Yet. Can't Sing Yet. So now that they had their little name, their little outfits, their little songs, the Can't Sing Yet went to the talent show, got on stage, rocked the house, and tore it up, honey. Or so they thought. In reality, the talent show judges felt like them girls didn't do nothing right but name themselves the correct names. Can't Sing Yet, because that's exactly what the judges thought. In fact, they gave the Quinceañeras fourth place. And fourth place was nowhere near a high enough score to meet the local record executive. So the Quinceañeras flared out their little dresses and weeble wobbled on home. Their little pride was shot, honey. But luckily, there was a lady who worked at their school who felt like those talent show judges didn't know real talent, because she felt like the Quinceañeras were the ones who should have met that record executive. So this lady took it up on herself to call a record executive and a record label that she knew of and tell them that this fire behind girl group that sang for her should get an audition with this record label. And what do you know? The record executive was very Gordy and the record label was Motown. And at this time, Motown was not the Motown that we see today, or even the Motown that we saw when the Supremes were popular. Oh no, Motown at this point was a little struggling record label who was looking all over for talent, trying to see who was going to give them their big breakthrough. Berry Gordy brought the girls in to do a personal face-to-face audition for him. So he told the girls, hey, if you guys could go home, think up a song, write a song and bring it back, your own material, then hey, you guys could sign with the record label. Georgia Dobbins, the one who thought she was grown, honey, was now actually a part of the group, and she worked with some of her own personal musician friends to come up with a song called Mr. Postman. Please, Mr. Postman. The girls learned the song, brought it back to Motown to audition for Berry Gordy again, and gossip claims that Berry Gordy loved the song. So he offered to sign the girls right away. But unfortunately, all of the girls were underage, so they needed their parents to sign for them. And most of their parents did sign for them, but Georgia Dobbins' father would not sign his name on the dotted line because he worked all the time. And his wife, Georgia Dobbins' mother, I believe she was sick. So he needed Georgia to stay home and help around the house with chores and help raise her siblings. And so he told Georgia no. Golly, y'all, that must have hurt that this girl had to put her dreams on the back burner because of circumstances that her parents created. Or maybe they didn't even create the circumstances, but it was circumstances that were dealing with her parents. But again, like I said, she had to put her dream on the back burner. And once Georgia Dobbins was out of the group, Gladys Horton felt like she needed to find somebody to replace Georgia Dobbins because the Quinceañeras were a group of 5. So this is when she heard about a girl named Wanda Young, and this girl also graduated from Inkster High School a year before. So Gladys went to Wanda Young's house and she asked her, hey, would you like to sing with my group? We're about to sign to Motown. And so Wanda was like, yes, of course I'll sing with the group. And this is how you get that original lineup that first signed with Motown. So the girls got their final lineup, they are signed to Motown, and they even have a new name, which is the Marvelettes. And as soon as their new group name Marvelettes is established, Please Mr. Postman is released over the airwaves. It blew up the charts, baby. The Marvelettes were on the map big time. And not only were the Marvelettes on the map, Motown was on the map because this was Motown's first #1 hit. I mean, Motown had released good songs before, but baby, it was nothing like this. These girls, the Marvelettes, they were hot. And not only were they hot on the charts, they were super hot when it came to live performances. Now, if you wanted stiff, upper lip, gaudy, high-class stuff, you got the Supremes for that. But if you wanted somebody to get up there and show enough mashed potato and do the doggone twist and break a doggone sweat, baby, you wanted the Marvelettes because that girl group was the most dancingest girl group I've ever seen. Honey, wasn't no two-stepping to be found. These girls was moving, even on their slow songs. They had a whole bunch of dance steps. Matter of fact, go to the link and the timestamp in my top comment and watch these girls go. And I usually don't force people to go look at these links, but this time I'ma force y'all. Go look at them doggone links, y'all. Go on now. So the Marvelettes were something else, honey. They had proved their worth. And then things happened like they always do. They had some people eating out of the palm of their hand, and then they had other people who wanted to bop those big fat wigs off their big fat heads. And the people that were in this group were other acts at Motown. And that was because, firstly, they were the most successful group and the first group to get a #1 record. And secondly, because they were not from Detroit. Remember, these girls were from Inkster, Michigan. Inkster was very country, so these girls or other people looked at these girls like country bumpkins. You know what I'm saying? So how dare they come to the Motortown Review? You know what I'm saying? They ain't from the Motortown. They ain't from Detroit. Then they want to come over here and get a hit record. Cha, folks wanted them girls to disappear. But at the moment, the Marvelettes were on fire and they weren't going anywhere. But you know exactly how life works. So just as suddenly as I made that statement, one of them did indeed go somewhere. And that was Juanita Coward. Juanita was a great part of the group, but honey, she just could not take it. Show business was too much. Too much rehearsing, touring, dancing, singing, just all of your energy. And so you have to stay hungry when you're a part of show business. And Juanita just wasn't that hungry for that type of life anymore. You know, she was tired. Her body was tired. Her mind was tired. Her joints were hurting. It just was not the life for her. And then also, you know, they had a #1 hit. So she would have thought that they would have had a lot of money by this time because she was young. She didn't know how business worked. But she was also signed to Motown, so... But anyways, you know, she would have thought they would have had more money by now. So she's doing all of this work, putting all of this energy out, and she's not really seeing a big return on her investment. And so she's just done with this whole thing. And she left very early on in the year 1963. So now there was Georgiana Tillman, Katherine Anderson, Gladys Horton, and Wanda Young. And it really seemed like these four right here were the ones who would truly make history. But soon adversity started to pop up. And also that scandal, honey. And when adversity and scandal came knocking, it wasn't long before the Marvelettes completely fell apart. One of the very first things that happened that knocked the Marvelettes off of their game was another girl group who were signed to Motown started to get shine. 1964, the Supremes knocked it out of the ballpark, honey, with Where Did Our Love Go? And while Mr. Postman was huge, Where Did Our Love Go shot to the stratosphere. And when that song shot into the stratosphere like it did, it was over for a couple of groups. And Marvelettes was one of those groups. I mean, they still had their success and some successful songs that brought them recognition, but they were not getting recognized by the one person where it mattered most, and that was Berry Gordy. The Supremes had scored very high on the charts and had sold even more records than the Marvelettes. And so you know what time it was for businessman Berry Gordy. Hello Supremes, goodbye Marvelettes. So that was the first blow to the Marvelettes, and the second blow to the Marvelettes was sickness. Georgiana Tillman became ill with sickle cell anemia as well as lupus. She tried to stick around, but her symptoms became worse and worse, and so she had to leave the group in 1965. And then we get down to some of the serious issues within the actual group itself. And that was the division within the group. And here's where things get a little bit muddy, a little bit messy. Because see, everybody knows that Gladys Horton was the original lead singer for the Marvelettes when they signed with Motown. She was the leader on Please Mr. Postman. But within that first year, somebody at Motown, possibly Smokey Robinson, had decided that it would also be good to use Wanda Young's voice. They felt like Wanda Young should ad-lib on some of the songs that Gladys Horton sang. And because Wanda Young could reach a very high soprano, whenever they needed somebody to screech or scream over a record, Wanda Young would take the song over from Gladys Horton. And if you guys go watch that video in the top comment, you guys can see this happen as well. Well, things were already a little funky from the beginning because they weren't really sharing lead. I mean, they were a little bit, but like I said, Gladys was the de facto lead. Well, about 5 years from when they signed, the Marvelettes were still putting out hits, but these hits were nothing compared to the first hits. Please Mr. Postman, Too Many Fish in the Sea. You know, they weren't hitting the same way. So gossip claims that Smokey Robinson came through and basically was like, you know, Gladys, we love you, but you sing with a heavy, raspy type voice, and we think we need to switch things up by letting Wanda Young sing more lead on the songs. You know, she has this soft voice that America loves. We think we need to give her a shot. And so when it came time to record, Smokey asked Wanda to take the lead, and they recorded a song called I'll Keep Holding On. This song turned out to be one of the biggest hits that the Marvelettes had seen in a while, but it was not this song that really sealed the deal for Wanda Young becoming the lead singer. That song was a song called Don't Mess with Bill. And baby, if you haven't heard Don't Mess with Bill, you haven't heard nothing. I mean, it is a song that every woman would want to sing with a side chick, or not even a side chick, just a woman that's attempting to mess with her man. Most women feel like they have to let them know. And that's exactly what Wanda Young did in this song. And Wanda absolutely murders this song. She walks her little old bitty tail up to that doggone microphone and she opens her mouth, and it's like a mix of Tammy Terrell and a city girl or something like that. That's what her voice sounded like, and I promise you, she had a sweet little voice, but it had a ghetto twang to it. Oh, but every time I would apologize, I loved him more than before. You know, you gotta go check out the song. It's a really good song. And it is a huge hit. It shoots up the charts. And to Smokey Robinson, this is the kind of new push that the Marvelettes need. So after these successful songs by Wanda Young, gossip claims that Smokey Robinson pretty much told Wanda Young, you are the new leader of this group, completely pushing Gladys Horton to the side. But Smokey did not think this idea all the way through, because Wanda Young was no Gladys Horton. Now, Wanda started off just as hungry, driven, and determined as everybody else. But she was a very, very cute girl. And then Wanda Young was alleged to be very flirtatious, you know, like a hot girl. Now, that doesn't mean she was just going and throwing her stuff around, but she knew how to kind of tease me, and she had that type of charisma. So it wasn't long after the Marvelettes had signed to Motown, Wanda Young was pregnant with her first child. And although she loved this baby, things did not work out with that child's father, so she did not want to be just tied down with the baby. She still wanted to chase her dreams. And luckily, gossip claims she had a sister who was willing to take the baby from her and raise that baby as her own. And as soon as Wanda Young got back to being a full-time Marvelette, she was also right back to being that hot girl that all the men in Motown love. But most of those guys wanted to see what they could get and then move on to the next pretty girl. There was this one guy who really had the hots for Wanda Young, and this was Bobby Rogers of the Miracles. And gossip claims that Bobby was not no dummy. He saw how beautiful Wanda was, and he saw all of this stiff competition around him, so allegedly he did a lot to woo Wanda. You know, when he bought her gifts, he also bought gifts for her mother. He was very nice to her family. He went over and beyond to show Wanda that he was the guy for her. All of this charm worked like a charm, and gossip claims that Bobby and Wanda got married in 1963, and very soon after that, they ended up having 2 children. But rumor has it, after the birth of her 2 children, Wanda found out that the life of a wife and mother really did not jump out at her. You know, before she and Bobby actually got married and settled down, they did a lot of dates. You know, they went to a lot of parties, they had a lot of fun, they were on the scene. Well, now it was kind of tied down a little bit. And Wanda felt like she was still a young, beautiful woman. You know, she still wanted to go out on the scene. She still wanted to party, drink, have a good time. And so by the time 1965 came around, when she was placed as the lead singer of the Marvelettes, this was Wanda Young. She was a party girl. She was a party person. So now Wanda is the lead singer, but what happens when she parties a bit too much and she doesn't show up to rehearsals? And then what happens when she does show up, but she feels like nobody can really tell her anything because, see, now she's the leader of the group. Now, gossip claims that Wanda Young may not have been as bad as David Ruffin or anything like that, but rumor has it that sometimes she definitely talked Cash Money-ish to the other group members, especially Gladys Horton. But as Wanda became worse and worse on her power trip and into her party life, not only was she alienating Gladys Horton, she also was alienating Katherine Anderson. Katherine didn't like this new attitude that Wanda Young had either. She also didn't like the fact that now Wanda Young was so involved with the nightlife that it was becoming detrimental to the group, because, see, now Wanda Young was not only missing rehearsals, she was now sometimes full out missing shows. Allegedly, Wanda only wanted to show up when it was a big venue or when it would be a lot of eyes on her. Is this show gonna be on TV? Oh, it's not. Well, shoot, Gladys, you probably can go on stage and sing Please Mr. Postman or something, because I got something else to do. So through 1965 and 1966, the Marvelettes struggled to keep it together. And then in 1967, Gladys Horton officially left the group because she ended up having a child, and this child was born with medical disabilities. So now there are only 2 Marvelettes left: Katherine Anderson and Wanda Young. Now, had this group disintegration happened to the Supremes, Motown would have been in a tailspin. You know, Berry Gordy would have been losing his mind trying to correct this. But because it was happening to the Marvelettes, nobody really cared. Now, Berry Gordy did indeed replace Gladys Horton with a singer named Ann Bogan. And some people felt like, oh, with Ann Bogan here, it's gonna rejuvenate the group. You know, the Marvelettes is gonna get back on top. But even though Berry Gordy had added Ann Bogan, he he still didn't really show any care or concern for the Marvelettes. In fact, the only person in the Marvelettes that they showed half concern and a little bit of care for was Wanda Young. And that's just because it was her voice who sold the most songs on the last record. That's it. By the year 1967, it was painfully obvious that Wanda Young was the only one that they halfway cared about, because the Marvelettes released an album called The Marvelettes, and there was one hit song on this album called The Hunter Gets Captured by the Game. And wasn't not no Marvelettes voice on this song except Wanda Young. Nobody called Katherine Anderson or Ann Bogan to do the backing vocals for this song. In fact, Wanda Young was backed by a session group called the Adante. When Katherine Anderson and Ann Bogan found out about this treatment, this caused even more friction in the group, especially for Katherine Anderson, because she had been there since the beginning, and it was like she was kind of getting tossed to the side. But unfortunately for Katherine, she hadn't seen anything yet. 1970 came around and they had Wanda Young record a whole album by herself. Even though the album was released saying it had been recorded by the Marvelettes, there was nobody's voice on that full album except Wanda Young. After this right here, everybody knew that Motown, Berry Gordy, Smokey Robinson were pushing for Wanda Young to go solo. And baby, Wanda Young was probably tossing her hair back, honey. She was ready for her Diana Ross moment. But baby, this wasn't finna be a Diana Ross moment or a step out and floss moment. In fact, this was not gonna be a moment at all. Wanda Young going solo actually never happened, because that 1970 album, even though it was put out as the Marvelettes, it was only Wanda Young on that album. And that album flopped. So because it flopped, it showed Berry Gordy that Wanda Young's voice was not good enough to sell records on her own. And so they had been kind of coaxing Wanda Young, you know, kind of blowing up her head, telling her that she was about to go solo. And then suddenly, after the album, they just kind of put her on the shelf and just forgot about her, never picked her back up. And this right here had to hurt Wanda Young, but it didn't bother her too much, especially money-wise, because remember, by this time, she was married to Bobby Rogers, and he was still doing very well with the Miracles. They were still touring, making records and everything. So all Wanda Young really had to do at this moment was become a stay-at-home mom to her 2 children and live a wealthy woman's life. But unfortunately, that life was just too boring for Wanda. And so she continued to party and do drugs and live in the nightlife. And a lot of folks feel like Wanda Young just kind of did a deep dive into hard drugs like all the time just because her stint with the Marvelettes ended, but that's not really the case. There was actually something very traumatic that happened in her life that pushed her over the edge. Rumor has it, Wanda Young is at home by herself with the children one week because Bobby Rogers is going out of town. He is touring with the Miracles. Wanda gets bored and she calls her sister and she tells her sister, "Hey sis, I'm gonna come over there and meet you at Mama's house so we can go shopping because I'm bored." Wanda packs her kids up, goes over to her mother's house, and then kind of just waits around while her sister finishes getting ready. So her sister is styling herself, you know, she's doing her makeup, and then she starts to admire a few wigs that are on her dresser, trying to figure out which wig to wear. She ends up choosing a wig, but this wig does not belong to her. This is a wig that her friend let her borrow. So for you guys who are having trouble following the story, Wanda's sister picks up the friend's wig that she's borrowed and puts it on her head. She and Wanda leave out the door to go shopping. They are gossiping, talking, giggling, and out of nowhere, a man comes up and shoots Wanda's sister point blank in the head. It happened so fast that Wanda couldn't even scream. She's just kind of standing there in shock almost. I mean, it's incredible. She was just talking to her sister and walking with her sister, and now somebody has come and shot her sister in the head. Rumor has it that when her sister was shot, her body just kind of froze, and then she fell to the side into Wanda's arms. And it's only when she's on the ground, cradling her sister, looking at the blood all over her clothes, that she could really scream and cry and wonder what happened. And when what happened and why it happened came out, people were amazed that fate could twist in such a way. Allegedly, when the police started to investigate this murder, they figured it was going to be an ex-jealous lover. And they were right. It was a ex-jealous lover, but it was not Wanda's sister's ex-jealous lover. It was the owner of the wig's ex-jealous lover, the one that Wanda's sister borrowed the wig from. That guy had been so used to seeing his girlfriend or his ex-girlfriend wearing that wig that when he saw a female out walking with that wig on and walking so close to Wanda Young, when he knew that his girlfriend was close to somebody in the Young family, he just automatically assumed that was his girlfriend and walked up and shot Wanda's sister in the head. And I know most of y'all are probably questioning, Ashley, what was Wanda's sister's name? Baby, I did so much deep dive researching, but I could not find what this sister's name was. It may have been Lamona. At one point, somebody said it was Gretchen, because she had a lot of sisters, honey, and they were all beautiful just like her. Like, they all had the same face. I think it was about 6 or 7 of them. But I'm not sure what that sister's name, the one that was murdered in front of her. So this is one thing that caused Wanda to deep dive into drugs. But then on top of that, gossip claims that either a few months later or that next year, one of her brothers was also killed. So Wanda just kind of kept getting hit with blow after blow after blow. And this caused her to do blow after blow after blow. And gossip claims that around this time or after these tragic events, not only did she get onto harder drugs, she also started drinking because she felt like alcohol also dulled the pain. So if there ever was a point where Wanda Young was a great wife and mother, by this time she definitely is not. And so Bobby Rogers eventually had to make the choice best for him and his children, and so he divorced Wanda Young and he took full custody of his children. Now, I do know that Bobby Rogers ended up getting remarried and those children grew up with a stepmother, but they never fully left contact with their mother, Wanda. Gossip claims that her son posted a picture with him and Wanda driving a car a couple of years back, so they were always in her life. After Bobby Rogers, I'm not sure if Wanda Young ever got into a very serious relationship again, but I do know that in the year 1982, she became pregnant again. She gave birth to a daughter named Miracle Rogers. Unfortunately for Wanda, just like things happened with her other children, this new baby girl was also given to one of her sisters to raise. But even though the child was afforded a good life, tragedy still struck. On February the 17th, 2015, Miracle was hanging out with a friend when she and her friend were gunned down. And Miracle was only 32 years old. And I don't know if Wanda Young ever truly got completely clean during her latter lifetime, but by looking at the string of tragedies, once again, you could almost see why. Either way it goes though, gossip claims that Wanda could always muster up a smile, especially when it came to her fans. They come walking up to her, "Hey, Miss Wanda girl, I remember when you was a young whippersnapper girl." She would enjoy those talks. And she continued to be a face of recognition in her community until the day she passed away, which was on December the 15th, 2021, when Wanda was 78 years old. And although Wanda's passing was tragic, there are 2 other members where their deaths are almost even more tragic than hers. And one of those is Georgiana Tillman, whom I told you had suffered from sickle cell anemia and lupus. She was never able to truly recover from her illness, and so she died at a very early age, actually at the age of 36 in the year 1980. And then you have Gladys Horton, and she didn't die as young as Georgiana Tillman, but her story is still very tragic because after she'd left the Marvelettes, she'd used up every penny that she'd earned so far in order to take care of her son, who had disabilities. And when Gladys saw Georgiana Tillman pass away without much money at all from the time of when she was a Marvelette, this kind of sparked something in Gladys Horton. She felt like as a Marvelette, she was due royalties. They all were. And so just like she took the lead in their younger days, she took the lead on this. She started demanding publicly that she and the rest of the Marvelettes had sold so many records that they were due some money for some comfort. She did several interviews to try to let the world know what was going on. And then she decided that if Motown was going to play with her royalties, she was still a Marvelette. So she'd just get out and record more songs. And And so she signed with a new record label called Motor City Records. And she called Catherine, Juanita, Wanda, all of the old Marvelettes that were still alive. And she tried to rally them to come and sing on this new album, on this new record label. Nobody really wanted to take part except Wanda Young. And she did join Gladys Horton, and they recorded music together. Now, the sales from this music didn't do much, but it did give Gladys Horton another chance to tour. And so she went on tour as Gladys Horton of the Marvelettes, singing some of their old songs as well as some of the new songs she recorded. And baby hadn't booked but about 2 shows before some bald-headed man came walking up on the stage and telling Gladys Horton that she needed to get off the stage and sit her little tail down somewhere because she could not perform under the name the Marvelettes anymore. And baby, you know Gladys's eyes was real big and buck. Because what do you mean I cannot perform under the Marvelettes? I am a Marvelette. Child, that man told her, no ma'am, you're not. We have a new group of ladies. They are the Marvelettes. You ain't nothing. After Gladys finished having what I'm sure was a meltdown, it was explained to her that a guy by the name of Larry Marshak now owned the name Marvelettes, and he had his own groups of women that were touring under that name. And when Gladys heard this, she could not believe it. Who the heck is this Larry Marshak guy? And she also wondered just how was he able to acquire her group's name. And gossip claims this is when the famous rumor got started that Larry Marshak was a guy that was at a gambling table with Berry Gordy. The folks say that Larry was winning on every turn, and gossip claims that Berry Gordy got tired of losing money because he was losing so much of it. So allegedly, Berry Gordy was like, you know what, Larry, I ain't putting no more money down. But what you think about the name, the Marvelettes? How about that? What if I give you that name and you can do whatever you want to do with it? They play the game and Berry Gordy loses again. Now, actual people from Motown that I've talked to have conflicting stories on this. Some people say that this is very true. Then other people say that this story did not happen at all. The people who say it wasn't true say the only reason that the rumor was made up in the first place is because this Larry Marshak guy could not produce receipts when he was questioned on when and how he bought the Marvelettes name. I don't know whether it's true or not, but I do know that Gladys Horton was not having it. And so she told Larry and anybody else, baby, we can go to court. And she did go to court for many, many years. The great news is that in the end, Gladys and the rest of the Marvelettes won the rights back to use their name. The bad news is that right before the judge reached that judgment, Gladys Horton passed away. She'd spent the last 10, 15, 20 years trying to fight to use a name that really did belong to her, just so she could make money for herself, for her child, to make a life for herself. And it's sad because all of those years, she was young enough, she was healthy enough to go out on tour to make money. And ain't that something? By the time she finally won the rights to use that name, all of that youth, all of that energy, all of that health was completely gone because once again, like I said, she had passed away right before. In fact, Gladys Horton passed away on January the 26th, 2011, when she was 65 years old. And rumor has it that very next year in 2012 is when they actually won the right. Of the actual signed Marvelettes, it appears that Catherine Anderson and Juanita Cowart are still alive, and I'm supposing they're doing well. During their heyday, they were all such beautiful ladies, and I really hate it kind of fell apart the way it did for them. Now, we're about to wrap this video up, but I'm definitely about to hit y'all with a T-bomb in the end. On an old Motown gossip blog thread here on the internet, there is a rumor that alleges that the reason that Wanda Young first started partying and kind of doing drugs in the first place is because allegedly while Motown was on one of their tours, somebody, I don't know who, slipped a Mickey or a roofie inside of Wanda Young's drink. Now, they made no claims of what might have happened to her through the night, like they didn't give a reason of why she might have been drugged, but they claimed when she woke up, she was kind of a very different person than what she was before. She was way more loose, way more party hardy, y'all know, just a much more loose personality type. Me personally, I had never heard this rumor before outside of this gossip blog, so I don't know if there's any truth to it. Have you guys ever heard anything like that? You know, I don't know if somebody was just trying to make an excuse for Wanda Young because of the way things worked out for her, or if somebody just woke up one morning and decided to put a full-blown lie out on the streets. I don't know. What I do know is that this is the end of the old Hollywood scandals for the Marvelettes. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you guys soon with a new video. Bye, y'all.